Hello, I can't hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Now I
Yeah, yeah. Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you. Are you in a lockdown or what? What are you? Are you It's possible to do anything you want, or how is the situation just now in Hong Kong?
Okay. So in Hong Kong, the situation is pretty calm right now. So we're not on a lockdown and not really on a quarantine. So we're able to like do our daily activities, and most commercial activities and businesses are back on track. So basically our daily lives are on the normal track. So if you want to go out, it's still possible, just that you're not allowed to gather in groups more than 4 people. So yeah, so that's the current situation. But and now so high schools are resuming, so students are back in school right now. But for primary students in kindergarten, they're still supposed to stay at home. But now the government is like slowly resuming classes to kindergartens and primary schools as well.
And how are you? How do they open? Do they all wear gloves and mask and all this? Or
Yeah, so now uh I think it's kind of a law that when we go out, we must wear a mask in all public places, including schools, offices, and yeah, just on the street, you're supposed to wear a mask.
And Vincent, my question is because they're supposed, the Spanish people or the European people, they're supposed also to wear the mask in some
Mhm.
places, but they don't wear it. Do they in Hong Kong and in China? Do they wear the mask always?
Yeah, we always wear a mask, and it's actually kind of strange for us to not wear a mask. So basically, if you're in a public space and you're not wearing a mask, you're expected to be looked by others in a like weird and awkward way, because we kind of think that you are supposed to wear a mask. If you are not, then people would kind of like avoid you in public spaces. But I don't think it's a law. So if you're not wearing a mask, it's not like you're going to be punished by the government, but you would be looked in an awkward way, I would say.
My question is because I read that you had like bracelet, no, if for the people
Mm.
who had COVID, but there were no law to of confinement. Do you think that the Asian people in normal in general they think more in the community as the Western people?
Mm, as far as I understand, I think Asians are more concerned about the general hygiene. So a- after after there was like local infections, Hong Kong people just kind of like wore mask without anybody like telling them that you must do this or that, but they just kind of like understood and just like wore mask themselves. And about the bracelets, those are for the people who came back to Hong Kong from other places. um yeah, just for the government to track them if they're like behaving and doing their self quarantine or not. But yeah, that's the bracelets thing if you're coming back from like foreign countries.
But you think that it's that they maybe also you wear more mask because of the pollution, no? Normally.
Yeah, without before the virus, mask wasn't a very common thing, but we still wear masks due to maybe like pollutions, or if a person is sick, they would also wear a mask as well. So it wasn't a very strange thing for Hong Kongers to wear mask in like public spaces.
My question is, do you have the same restriction or not restriction, the same virus politic in Hong Kong than in the rest of China?
In China, they had this lockdown in several major cities, including Wuhan, where the epicenter was. In Hong Kong, we didn't really have that, but we kind of like since Hong Kong and China are like separated politically. So we're kind of a semi-autonomic regions here. So we have our own government. So what we did during that time was that so after the outbreak in China, we closed off the borders of with China and also our international airport. So we were basically on a lockdown as well, but it wasn't as serious and as strict as that was in mainland China, I would say.
And was there transparency? Because there was a lot of critique of that the Chinese government was not so transparent about the numbers and so on. Were there more transparency of the Hong Kong government?
I would say yes, because we still have, because Hong Kong people were pretty like um, critical to the numbers in China, because in general, Hong Kong peoples aren't really trustful to China due to their problems with transparency and hiding the truth, censoring the people's voices and stuff. So Hong Kongers were pretty like caution about the numbers and just saw them as references instead of like fully believing them. So but as for Hong Kong's infection numbers, I think the government was pretty transparent with that as well.
So we read a lot of in the last days about Hong Kong because of this because of the protest, and now because of the security law. But my first question is why were there so many protests? In Hong Kong?
Okay, that's a very long story, because Hong Kong has always been this place that was kind of rebellious towards the Chinese Communist Party, and so the major protest that we saw in 2019 was because of this execution law that China wanted, that the Hong Kong government proposed, which sparked the protest in Hong Kong. So I don't know if you know about the origin of why they introduced this law.
No.
Do you know?
No.
Oh, okay. So so I'm just gonna say this like really briefly, because I'm not like a really like politic person, but as far as I know is that there was this Hong Kong couple who went to Taiwan to kind of like for a vacation, but only one of them, the male, came back, and later they figured out that he killed his girlfriend in Taiwan. But since Hong Kong and Taiwan did not have this like um, agreement to send people who have convicted laws to both places, so in order to transfer him, the guy, to Taiwan to face jury, the Hong Kong government kind of like introduced the extradition law, so that he would be transferred to Taiwan. But at the same time, this extradition law allowed suspects in Hong Kong to be transferred to China to face jury there. But the problem is that China and Hong Kong had like a very polar or opposing law system. So, and also Hong Kong people were very untrustful to the Chinese government. So that sparked the whole protest. So, and then basically it hasn't really stopped since 2019, and it's still continuing to today. And now I think a week before, China introduced another very controversial law, which is the national security law, and also the national anthem law, which has also sparked another wave of protest as well.
And what does this law mean? Because there were protests. Do you think they used the crisis of Corona, of people staying at home, to push this law?
This is a very hard question. So I'm not really sure, but I think the coronavirus did play an important part here, because as most of the people are afraid of getting infected, so the protests kind of like cooled down during those few months, and protests were not that violent, and not people were on the street protesting, so maybe that had been like a factor that pushed the Hong Kong government or China to impose the new law, uh, a new national security law in Hong Kong. And also, I think the coronavirus in the situation of coronavirus in the United States is also a very important factor, because they themselves are having a very hard time dealing with the situation. And before the coronavirus, America had a better time kind of like uh, balancing China, like putting pressure to China. But now, since they're like having a hard time themselves, so China isn't having that much international pressure right now. So they're more able to impose a new law and get past the international pressure, I think.
And what does this law mean exactly?
So this national security law is, so China um, kind of like said that this law is to help stable Hong Kong situation and prevent uh, terrorists and any foreign forces, or to split the country, or to threaten the Communist Party's rules over mainland China. But a lot of Hong Kongers fear that this law could further restrict their freedom, like freedom of speech and freedom of assembly that we used to enjoy. And now Hong Kongers are feeling that the central government is threatening their freedom.
And what does this mean for the people? Because there were some protests, no, some now, and there people got arrested. Do they? What
Yeah,
is it much worse now with this law for the people who got arrested than before the law?
not exactly, because this law has just this, I think yesterday or the day before, they just passed in mainland China in the National Assembly. But for the law to be introduced into be carried out in Hong Kong will still take maybe 2 or 3 more months. So the people who are arrested right now are still under the protection of Hong Kong law. Yeah.
But later on, maybe not. No, they're not.
Yeah. So after the official introduction of the law, that's another story. Yeah.
And my question is also I was reading that Donald Trump announced also that they will not treat Hong Kong like I think they treated the USA treated Hong Kong in a different way until now, no? So now he's
Yes.
said that he will not do it. What does this mean for you personally and for Hong Kong?
Honestly, I'm like not really into politics, so for me, I think it's that Hong Kong loses its reputation as an international and free city that's in mainland China. I think it, after Donald Trump maybe like imposes this new law that Hong Kong is no longer enjoys this special status, it kind of like deteriorates our reputation as an international financial hub. Um, but for Hong Kong as in general, I think the biggest impact would be our economy, because we kind of depend a lot on the uh, financial activities between China and the West, because Hong Kong has been that open port where Western investor kind of enter China's market through Hong Kong, and where Hong Kong serves as a springboard for Chinese business to kind of like go to the West, that kind of situation. Yeah.
I also read that there were experts who were afraid of a mental crisis because it said that like a third of others of Hong Kong they suffered from PTSD, you know, because they were very concerned during the protest, and now you have the virus, and they are also afraid of about the impact, the economical impact. No? Do you notice that the people are much more concerned on or worried?
Mm, I'm not really sure, but I think everybody now is very concerned with the current situation. And for the people that I know, like my friends, they are more concerned about Hong Kong's political situation than the corona situation right now, because I think Hong Kong has done a pretty good job in containing the virus, whereas the political situation right now is pretty depressing. And a lot of the teenagers right now feel that they have the need to stand out and to speak out about how they feel. And I think that the political situation kind of uh, affects teenagers more mentally, because because it's kind of our future later that and it affects how our lives and our children are, like what kind of city that we're going to live in. And so I would say that the political, like the new extradition in national security law has affected the teenagers um, thoughts and their behavior more than the coronavirus.
Do you think with the protest that there will be a new wave of coronavirus there in Hong Kong or not?
mm, I don't think that there would be a new wave of coronavirus, um, because as for Hong Kong people, we're pretty like self-conscious. We are wearing masks in all public spaces and even in protests. Uh, and for the last 15 days, we haven't have any local infected cases. I think we had one today, but not sure because she's still in the hospital for further checkup, not confirmed. But for the last 15 days, we haven't had any um, new cases of coronavirus. So I don't think that the protest will create another wave of local infected cases.
Uh, and what is your solution for the future now coming, you know, to avoid this economical impact or be with now with the restriction law? Do you see some solutions for the future?
Mm. Well, regarding to the virus, I would think that uh, entrance restrictions should be continued so that there's not much foreign people coming into the region, because if there's like traveling, there's going to be like more people will carry viruses from different regions to different regions and spreading the virus, and which would most likely create new waves of local infected cases. And at the same time, I think Hong Kongers should keep wearing masks to prevent to also like prevent local infected cases. And for the political situation, to be honest, I think our power here as Hong Kongers are very limited, and there's not much that we can really do except from protesting and continue to call for international awarenesses and international support. Besides that, I think our power is really limited because China, to be honest, is nowadays is very powerful, and they it's for them to imply new laws into Hong Kong is very easy.
Um, do you think what do you think could be the positive of this crisis? What do you see positive?
Uh, you mean the coronavirus? The
Yeah,
positive,
yeah.
uh,
Notice the coronavirus. What do you think? If, or because it's such a global problem, is there
mhm,
something positive you see now with for you and for Hong Kong, in Latin
mm.
country?
I think the positive impact would be that everybody now is more self-aware, as we are now wearing masks in public spaces, and when we enter restaurants, we have to take our temperatures and uh, kind of like oftenly sanitize ourselves with hand sanitizing gels and stuff. So I think the virus in general um, increased Hong Kongers' public health awareness, and to be more considerate towards the community as a whole. Yeah, so
And for you personally, what did this mean for you personally?
the coronavirus.
Yeah, this crisis. Yeah, what did you learn, or what do you think that you
Mm.
learned with this crisis?
What I learned is that protecting yourself is also protecting others, because if you get infected, you can also infect the people that are really close to you, your family, your friends. And also, if you're not being self-conscious and not like wearing mask or like keeping your hygiene at a good status, you also burden the community, because if you get sick, you also occupy public hospital resources that could have been used for other patients who are more in needed, because Hong Kong hospital resources, medical resources are very limited. And uh, yeah, so that's what I learned. So just that you have to be very self-conscious and be more considerate to the community.
One last question is from me. Do you think because it was in the Western countries was quite difficult to convince the I think the older people and also the people of your age, because it was
Mhm.
not virus didn't affect so much the young people. Do you see a difference between the young people, the young Asian people and other Western young people? If you speak with them or you observe them, do you see differences?
Mm, yeah, I do see a differences, especially in the beginning, because since Hong Kong was very close to China, so we were the first places to have to have like local corona cases. So at the first, Hong Kong teenagers were very concerned about it. So everybody was like wearing masks, and everybody was just like close to a panic situation because nobody knew what was going on. But luckily, we had like experience from 2003 where we had uh,
So,
SARS.
mm,
Yeah, SARS. So it also helped Hong Kongers to understand that um, that viruses can spread really, really fast and can cause like serious infections and burden the hospital medical resources. So everybody in Hong Kong was very concerned and self-aware about this. But because joined program, which was to kind of like interact with international exchange students. So I could see that there was like a difference in the mindset between Asian students and also Western international students. Because at first they kind of looked down on the situation because everybody thought it was kind of like common flu. It was nothing really serious. It was just kind of like coughing or just sneezing, and you could just get well by just staying at home. So everybody was not very, so the Western student weren't treating it very seriously. And some of them wore masks, but some of them didn't really do that until maybe, I think, later in March or April, where it started to spread and explode in Italy and Spain, where everybody really saw that how the virus could spread so rapid and cause such serious damage to the community.
Do you think that the world did not take it so seriously because it came from Asia?
I would say yeah, maybe, because I have been speaking to some Spanish exchange students, and one of them told me that uh, because they kind of look down on China, where they think that the virus broke out because Chinese people were eating weird and exotic wild animals, which caused the infections. And they said that in Europe, they would never eat wild animals or never do this and do that. So it's not likely that they would get infected. And they also believe that the government and the medical system in Spain, at least in Spain, could like withstand and cure the virus. So everybody was not really taking that seriously until there was starting to have news that Italy had this lockdown, and then everybody started to treat this virus very seriously, that it's not just a problem for Chinese people or like the Asian continent. It's also a global pandemic, a global problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
for accepting the interview and saying all the things. Stay healthy.
Thank you.
Stay in contact. Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Yeah. Goodbye. Goodbye.